Mark here for Mark 2.0. Gordon and I wanted to come on and do a promo, but first start off by wishing all of our guests and all of our, wonderful followers, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Gordon.
Thank you. I was just on the phone with my daughter, who's soon to be 18, just graduated high school this year. So one of three.
That's great to hear. And how fitting was it that this past week we were able to, interview a legend whose dad was a big name himself, Len
Yes.
Chip Hawks of the Tremolos.
Yes, and his son Chesney.
Yes, exactly. And I just got his box set CD. And what people don't realize, about Chesney is he had a string of hits in the UK and in Europe. We only knew him from one hit, but he had, caught up in circles, I'm missing you already. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with this picture? And this major hit, I am the one and only Chesney Hawks. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to either go on any audio platform, or if you want to put a face to the name, go on our YouTube channel and you can see Gordon on there. Gordon had to deck out early because he's currently touring with Right Said Fred. He got the weekend off. And how was the tour so far?
Do me a favor, Mark.
Yeah.
Hold up the box set again.
Sure.
No, that's Chesney Hawks at the age probably of 17 or 18 years of age.
19, yeah, probably.
Yeah. He looks, he's a little older now. He's 50. So.
But he still has a full head of hair, unlike us.
Anyway, oh no, 2022 has been a great year, and it's been a lot of fun, and the fun is continuing. This week we have coming up, it's Wednesday, is it not?
Yeah, Wednesday. Let me start out. We have two guests this week. One will air on Wednesday, one will air on Thursday. We have actually my 8th grade teacher who's still teaching, and she wrote this, fascinating book, fictional book called Into the Shadows. It's about a girl and her family, Yugoslavia during World War II, and it's remarkable. I'm really looking forward to having her on. Another self-published, just like Tommy Doles, and let the listeners know our other guests this week.
And the other guests this week, if you've seen the Disney movie The Rookie, which tells the story of a pitcher by the name of Jim Morris, who was the first round draft pick of the Milwaukee Brewers, who spent 1 or 2 years pitching in the low minors, who unfortunately, arm injuries, he wasn't able to continue his career. After 4 surgeries, he hung up his cleats and gave up his dream of playing baseball and became a physics teacher and a baseball coach down in Texas. And then at the age of 35, coaching the team, and the team being amazed at how hard he threw, they compelled him to try out again for the major leagues at 35 years of age. So he went to a tryout for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and not only did they sign him, but that very same year, he made his major league debut, and he pitched the end of the 1999 baseball season, and he started the 2000 season, but unfortunately, arm issues came up again, and he was once again forced to retire. But it was such an amazing story that Disney turned it into a movie. And now Jim Morris, who will be on the podcast this Wednesday, he's now a motivational speaker and highly in demand, tours all over, talking about, I'm sure, chasing your dreams. So we're going to have a great conversation with him. Again, that's this Wednesday, the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. And next week, we have a great guest too, of the two brothers pop duo, Hue and Cry. Gordon's going to brush off his Scottish accent. Greg Kane of Hue and Cry. You remember them from such songs as well, Gordon really doesn't like me to sing, but Labor of Love and Never Stop Looking for Linda. But they've been on top of the pops several times, just like Chesney has, just like a lot of our guests have. I think Gordon was on top of the pops too, weren't you?
Scotland has some of the greatest music going. And I'll tell you, in North America, in the United States and Canada, you don't hear it. They don't play the good music like from Scotland. You got the Bay City Rollers and that's it.
Exactly.
Scotland's amazing. Sean Connery. Forget it. Scotland's the best.
That's another great thing about the podcast. You never know what accent you're going to have, Gordon, because we're interviewing people from all over the world. So we are world-renowned podcasters. We can now say that. And another thing that people don't know is that Gordon is quite the basketball player. He was supposed to star. Yeah, you still are, but you were supposed to star in Slam Dunk Ernest, but Richard Leacock beat you out for the role, unfortunately. Yeah, know what I mean, Vern?
Well, if we're talking about accents, probably one of the most interesting guests we had in that respect was when we talked to Taco, who came out with the 1983 smash hit Putting on the Ritz. And this guy was born in Indonesia, grew up in Europe, spent time in Seattle, Washington, and now lives in Hamburg, Germany. And he can speak Dutch, German, French. He speaks all the Frisch, speaks all these languages. So, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun talking to people with all these different backgrounds, different stories, different life journeys. And I just want the train to keep on moving.
And one thing that I get out of it, and you get out of it too, is everyone thinks, oh, these people are a star. They've made it. They've had look at somebody, there's just about all of our guests, but look at somebody like Brad Johnson, who had to grind his way through the NFL and, was backup starting, won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before Brady, brought them their first, Super Bowl. And luckily they changed those creamsicle uniforms. Oh, what were they thinking before he got there? But just all of our guests, Richard and Viv Leacock, they've had, I loved when Viv came on and explained how he got that role in I Spy with Eddie Murphy. It was amazing.
This is the thing. You tend to think that, Viv Leacock, Richard Leacock, Brad Johnson, these well-known, famous.
Derek McGrath, he had to grind his way through the industry.
Yeah, they're not going to want to come on and do a podcast interview with a guy in Phoenix and a guy in small town Ontario, Canada, but they're wonderful people. They enjoy the format. They enjoy the conversation. They enjoy sharing their story. A lot of them are still very active. Brad Johnson is incredibly involved with doing charitable work. Also, he's blowing up TikTok by doing crazy, insane trick shots.
Yeah, it's unreal.
The guy should have been a basketball player.
And what's so great about us, it just happened to fall this way, is that being Father's Day, this is the perfect time. We've had so many people, like Jack Doles and his son, Tommy, such an inspiring, look at the great parents that Richard and Viv Leacock are, and things like Brad Johnson. His son plays for Texas A&M quarterback. Unreal.
This is the thing, a lot of these names, if you haven't watched our previous shows, watch them. You'll find out, you'll meet some incredible people. Listen to the old episodes.
And you brought up a great point right there. Watch, it's on YouTube, because then you can put a, face to that name.
That's right. And you can,
anyway is fine, audio too, but.
Yep, you can subscribe. That way you don't miss any content. You can also throw up your comments. We love reading what you have to say. And Mark brought up Jack Doles. If you don't live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and if you don't hyper follow the Olympics, you might not realize who Jack Doles is. He's the sport director for an NBC affiliate called Wood TV in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he's covered the last 11 Olympic Games for NBC itself, for the network. And so he came on, told us about his life being a broadcaster, talking to, world famous Olympic athletes, as well as the Tigers, the Lions, the Red Wings, the Pistons. But he then put us on, and he had us speak to his son, who has written the book Gridiron Redemption, which is the story of his son who tried out and signed contracts with 2 NFL teams, but then sadly,
3 times too. Twice
Yes.
with the Bears and once with the
2 contracts with the Bears.
Falcons.
Yeah, he got released twice by the Bears during one preseason and once by the Atlanta Falcons. And he wasn't ready to hang up his cleats. He wasn't ready to put his helmet away. He wanted one last season. He wanted to keep playing football. He put so much into the game. He just didn't want to walk away at such a young age. I think he was 24 at that point. And so he went to Europe and he played for a semi-professional team in just outside of Paris, France, a team called Le Courneuve, Le Flash de Courneuve. And it's an amazing book. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. And Jack then also referred us to Bill Barkley, who we haven't talked about, a gentleman who started going deaf when he was 5 years of age, and then around 26, 27, started to lose his vision. And as much as those were body blows, especially, having conquered deafness, learning to read lips and to use hearing aids and adaptive technology, then he finds out his sight is going, and he was able to transcend those challenges and has gone on, and he's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He's run the Boston Marathon twice. He's gone 500. He's gone on a 500-mile trek through Spain to inspire and to bring attention and awareness, not just to people with blind deaf issues, but to people who want to transcend life's challenges, because we all face challenges. So the train's not stopping.
And another guest that Gordon wasn't present for because he was on tour. No, I'm joking. He got the times mixed up because UK and all that was Owen Paul. And Owen Paul is a fascinating story. And Owen, if you're listening, we'll have to have you on again, because you were just such an inspiring guest. And Gordon wants to,
Yes.
has some questions to fire your way. He had a major hit, and the record label wanted him to, called My Favorite Waste of Time. The record label wanted him to create the exact same type of music. And he was like, no, kind of like what happened. And he explained that's what happened with George Michael. After he did Faith, he did the Listen Without Prejudice, I think was the album, the one that had Freedom on it. And they wouldn't promote it because George Michael, it was a completely different sounding thing. Anyways, he has a similar story, and he's still going. That's why I'm so jealous of the Europe and the UK. They're having these major festivals, and the 80s is alive. And I mean, they have it here because I went to the, mixtape tour.
Yeah.
With Rick Astley, In Vogue,
Salt and
Pepper, and New Kids on the Block. And it was sold out. It was awesome. And they have another one in September, Gordon. And some of your bands are going to be there. Your old girlfriend, Dale Bozio of Missing Persons, is going to be there. There's about 7 Naked Eyes. There's about 7 or 8 groups. I'm planning on going to that one. It's just, I love this revival of, 80s and 90s music.
Yeah. Oh, no. Nostalgia has always been a big thing. The only thing is, kids in their 20s and 30s don't know what nostalgia is yet. They will. When they get to be in their 40s and 50s, they'll find out that their youth, now your youth is nostalgia. When I was a kid growing up, the nostalgia was the 60s and the 50s. Now I'm in my 50s, and the nostalgia is the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at another guest, Charlene. And that's what's so great about this podcast is we ask things that reporters that, CBC, CNN, you name it, BBC would not even think to ask. Like Charlene, we talked about, of course, her hit, I've Never Been to Me, but then we also brought up, well, you did a duet with Stevie Wonder, the man himself, the legend. And she explained how that came about. She explained how the writer, and that's what people don't realize is these musicians also have writers who write for them too. I mean, some musicians write their own stuff, but this was a really dark song called Used to Be. And I loved hearing her explain that story and why it was a flop and why it couldn't be on airplane.
It wasn't so much a flop. It was more or less censored. It was kept off the air.
Good point. Yeah.
It did not get wide play because of what were perceived to be objectionable lyrics. And so if you want to find out what we're talking about, go back through the archives, check out our previous episodes, and click on the one for Charlene, and you can watch or listen. She's alive and well and going strong down in Texas. Texas seems to be where everyone is these days that we're talking to. Jim Morris is from Texas. Charlene is from Texas. So.
And one thing that you brought up a great point too, is that these are not time-stamped. You know what I mean? These interviews are timeless.
Yep.
Doesn't matter when we did them.
Nope. No, we're talking about what the person has done in their past, what they're doing right now, and what's coming down the future. We're talking about their journey, the journey that they've been on, what they're doing, and the road ahead.
And we want to make sure that, and I'm going to post all the links for like Chesney Hawk's website, Owen Paul's website, where you can get, Tommy Doles' book, you name it. And another guest that we're going to be having coming up is Taco introduced us to him, James Arena. He wrote the book Hot Summer Jams, which I just ordered. I'm looking forward to reading it. And Taco just came out with a hit called Hot Summer Jams.
And this is the thing now in today's world with the technology available now, it used to be the only music you would hear is that which programming directors with radio stations would decide, okay, these are the records we're going to play on the air. And you don't realize how much great music there is out there that doesn't get onto the playlist, that doesn't pass through the programming directors. And now the way with the centralization in media, you have individuals in New York and Las Vegas, or not Las Vegas, but rather Los Angeles, who are determining what content is played through syndication across the United States, across Canada. And there is, thanks to the internet, thanks to platforms like Spotify, like YouTube,
Apple,
like Apple, thanks to these platforms, thanks to modern technology, now artists can bypass and they can get right out to their fans, and you can listen and decide, wow, maybe the radio station doesn't like this artist or this music, but I love it. And you can listen to what you like. And you might click on to Owen Paul and go, why did I never hear of this guy?
Or Chesney Hawks. Yeah.
Yes, you'll listen
Taco too. And what was great about that Taco interview, and somebody actually shared it on YouTube, is that we talked about other hits, Super Physical, Resurrection, you name it, and he
and coming up, you'll be able to hear about Hue and Cry from Scotland.
Yeah, maybe they'll ask you to join their group.
I'm gonna have to watch Braveheart again to get it done. The problem with the Scottish accent is it's Glaswegian.
There we go.
And Glaswegian, that's a tough town. All right. That's a dirty town. That's a rough town.
We'll have to wait and see what Greg thinks of your accent.
We'll see what he thinks. It's not bad. My granddad was Scottish. He used to say, go get me that cartoon. What? The cartoon. Oh, you mean the curtain? That's right, the cartoon. So.
And it's also important to point out that, and we forgot to mention our Vince Gritani, our theater guest. You know, I knew him from, and I did not know that at all. I knew him from, Gordon calls it Cottage Life TV, which he was on Cottage Life TV in Ontario. I knew him from the Weekend Guy on Ion Life TV. Such an inspiring guest. And now he's in what? He went from Muskogee to Cape Breton Island. And he's going to be, I'm sure he's going to be doing some theater up there.
Oh, he's still heavily involved, but behind the scenes, he's writing, he's directing, he's producing. You know, there's so much that goes into the entertainment industry. It's not just the individuals on the camera. You've got writers, you've got directors, you've got editing. There's so much work that goes involved. The guys you see on screen are just the face of it all, but behind every actor you see on screen or behind every musician you hear, there is at least a dozen other people doing work to get their content out into the media.
Yeah.
Be it traditional media or even be it social media.
And with you, you have some experience in theater. I've very little, taking college courses and such and studying at the local civic theater when I was in Michigan. But
I tread the boards in about 15 different plays, all at the community theater level. The one thing is I did 3 plays with Markham Little Theater, and the plays were performed at the Markham Center for the Performing Arts, which is a 500-seat facility with private boxes. And it was actually, that theater was used as the opera house in the movie Moonstruck that starred Cher, where she won her Academy Award.
wow. Okay.
And so I can say that I have tread the boards. I have performed in a theater that had Cher
Unreal.
in a movie, and great theater. But it makes you feel like you're in a real professional production. And I played Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, One for the Road, Nurse Jane Goes to Hawaii, Mousetrap, The Real Inspector Hound. Because of my British accents, right?
Yeah.
I got cast into everything. Gordon, can you do this play? We need someone who can do a British accent. All right, I'll do it. So anyway.
You got me beat, that's for sure. I mean, you know my past. I dabbled in some working on a ton of TV shows, just doing, extra work when I was in college and such. My biggest role, I don't think I ever told you this, where I got the union voucher, was playing a dead Santa Claus.
You never told me.
Yeah, I played a dead Santa Claus on this TNT show called Major Crimes. I was just lying on the ground in the tent. They're like, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep, and they go, "You did such a great job." I get there, and they picked out, it was between me and this other person. They're like, "Oh, we'll take him." And they just luckily a draw, they picked me. And it was funny because the next day, get this, they booked us back for a second day at the precinct. And there was 15 Santa Clauses. 14 of us got union vouchers. One of them did not. And it was funny because they have a rule where you can't cancel, right? I was with Central Casting, you can't cancel. I was booked to work on another show that day too, Scandal. So luckily,
if they book, what you're saying is if they book you,
they book you and you call and cancel, you'll be wrapped by the Central Casting. They won't, you'll call in because you call in and look for work, and they'll say, no, we can't use you. They'll just, so I played it, and I was able to do both of them. That scene with Major Crimes, 15 minutes.
On screen time.
For a union voucher. And then at the night, we did this scene downtown LA for Scandal.
Well, the only I was in a commercial, probably sometime in and around the early 90s, 91, 92.
Yeah.
In university at the time. And Yuck Yucks was doing, which is a chain of comedy clubs.
I've heard of it, yeah.
In Canada. And Yuck Yucks had 3 clubs downtown Toronto. And I think it was at the Yorkville location. And which they called their downtown club, and they were doing a television advertisement, come down to Yuck Yucks, you'll die laughing, blah, blah, blah. And they had us in the audience. I was one of the members of the audience, and they had a comedian up at the mic, and he told the punchline to a joke. And then we all laughed like it was the funniest joke we had ever heard in our lives. Stage laughter. And that was my one TV commercial. And
it works. I like it.
It works. And actually, there was one other time I got on TV, and that was during, there was a TV show in Toronto, and this was in around 2000, 2001. I was working downtown Toronto, and someone got tickets to the Mike Bullard show. And the Mike Bullard show was a Canadian late night talk show, kind of our version of Conan, Jimmy Fallon, or Jimmy Kimmel. And they had a studio audience, and Mike Bullard is a famous Canadian comedian. Maybe we should try and get him on. I met him at a golf tournament as well. And during the show, they had a comedian come out and warm up the crowd. His name was Tweedley. And he came out and did the warm-up act. And as part of the warm-up act, he invited members of the audience to come up if they wanted and do something, show off a talent, do a dance, do break dancing, do whatever you wanted. So because I do accents and voices, my colleagues at work volunteered me, and I went up on stage and I did a few accents, and I actually won. They did an audience who won, and because I had a crew of there's about 10 or 15 of us from my workplace, they all applauded really loud when the hand was over my head. And so I won all kinds of passes for Palladium, dinner for two at Alice Fazzuli's, and a bunch of gift certificates and things like that. Probably $400 or $500 worth of stuff. It was worth it. It was fun.
Not bad at all.
And it was on TV. And for, about the following month, people were coming up to me and would say, were you on TV? And I go, yeah, I was on the warm-up show for the Mike Bullard show. Maybe I should have gotten myself an agent.
Yeah, then you wouldn't be doing this. Come on, this is more important than that. Pick your priorities, Gordon.
Well, let's face it, we are responsible for Taco splashing back onto the scene with hot summer jams. It wasn't until he came on the Mark 2.0 that Taco's career started going Zoom again.
It had nothing to do with him or James Arena coming out with Hot Summer Jams book.
It's all Mark and I.
Or Viv Leacock.
Yeah.
Hardy's getting renewed. I mean, When Calls the Heart, getting renewed.
When Calls the Heart has been renewed by Hallmark streaming
for a 10th
channel.
Season. You think, come on.
And it happened just after he came on the Mark 2.0. So if you're watching this, and if you're coming up to a crossroads in your career and you're really hoping for that call or for that song or for that role, come on the Mark 2.0 podcast and it'll happen.
And another thing too, like we were saying earlier, check out the YouTube channel and subscribe, hit that subscribe notification, because I was watching on YouTube the other day an old episode of The Twilight Zone that Viv Leacock was in, and I remember watching it when it aired on WGN.
Well, this is the thing. There are no, and we've talked about this with our guests, with Cameron Arnett, with Richard Leacock, with Viv Leacock.
Derek McGrath, I think. With
Derek McGrath. We've talked about this. There are no overnight successes. Overnight successes are very, very rare. Incredibly rare.
Unless you're Chesney Hawks. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
But typically what happens in 99% of the time, especially in the acting profession, actors are working for years and they're doing small little roles. They're getting an episode where they play a character Take a look at Michael Richards, who played Kramer on
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. Before that, he was in an episode of Cheers, and he was in episodes
UHF with
UHF.
Weird Al.
Yeah, he was in all kinds of shows, and he was building his resume. He was building his reputation. And then when they did Seinfeld, they said, okay, this guy's a known quantity. He's been working in the industry for 5, 6, 7. Sometimes it takes 10, 15 years before an actor gets that big role, that break.
And remember, that comes to mind what Derek McGrath said when he got on Doc, and he's like, Billy, Ray, Cyrus. And luckily it played off well because both Richard Leacock and him were seasoned actors.
Yeah. Well, you bring up Derek McGrath, and the story I liked most hearing from him was that he was on Dallas and he had a recurring role. They kept writing his character into more and more episodes. And he'd done, I think it was 15 or 16 episodes.
At least he was on like a whole season or a season and a half. Yeah.
Yes. And so his agent was talking to the producers of Dallas and saying, give the man a contract. Because while the stars like the Patrick Duffy and
Larry Hagman.
And what were some of the women on that show?
Linda Gray.
Linda Gray and what have you, they're making $40, $50, $100,000 an episode, whereas Derek McGrath is working, and irrespective of how many episodes he's in, he's making $25,000 a week.
And he brought up a great point. He said, I was getting more airtime than Victoria Principal.
Yeah, that was the actress I was trying to remember the name of, Victoria Principal. And she was getting $40,000 an episode, and he's getting $25,000 a week. So he's, during a week's worth of shooting, they might do 2 or 3 shows. So she's got 120 grand, and he gets 25. And so he was asking, his agent was saying, you're having this guy in every show, give him a contract. And the producers, no, we'll just call him when we need him to come down from Canada, and he can fly in. And then and this is what I love, CTV came along and they said, hey, we've got a show for you. You can be the star, you can be the headline star of the show. And it was called My Secret Identity. And Derek McGrath said, sign me up.
And it starred with him, his co-star, a young Jerry O'Connell, who had just come off Stand By Me. Like that type of era.
That's what I loved about hearing even Derek McGrath when he spoke with us. He said that he had the star billing, but he said really the star was the main character was a different individual.
Now, was that show big when do you remember it in the 80s or no?
To be entirely honest, I don't.
No, that's fine, because it was actually on our local Fox station, not as a Fox show, but in syndication, like 5 p.m. on Saturdays. And it must have been, I talked to a friend out here who's from LA, and he said he remembers it. So it must have been like that across the affiliates in the US.
Yeah. Well, what I loved about that, though, is Dallas. Then he has signed a contract with CTV.
They called him back to try
and they called his agent and said, yeah, we need Derek to fly down to LA next week. We've got 4 episodes to shoot. So we'll book him in at this hotel. And then, and his agent said, sorry, he can't come. And they're like, what do you mean he can't come? We've got like 4 episodes written with him in it. He has to come. And he signed a contract. He's got his own show now. If they had signed him to a contract, he would have still been performing on Dallas.
That was almost like a J.R. Ewing type move. They had to rewrite the whole script.
I love that interview. Derek was such an amazing guy to talk to, because he's had such an amazing career, and 2, he has such an amazing perspective on it. And what I couldn't get over as well is, notwithstanding, he's got to be around 70 years of age.
And he's still getting roles. Kim's Convenience.
Yeah.
Major
and on top of that,
show.
talking to him, he has so much energy.
Full of
He
life.
had
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so full. Remember we were doing the interview? He couldn't sit still.
No.
He's bobbing. I mean, if you watch
He
the video,
mailed us back, just so you know, and was like, oh my God, my head. Why did I not adjust it? Which I thought it was fine. Tacos was like that. I thought it was great, you know?
Well, what Mark's talking about, if you're watching this, you'll understand. But when Derek McGrath, we saw about this much of him. And, and the whole time he was talking, go, oh, that was great. And he would move and he was talking, and he is a very animated, wonderful. I wish we were in the same room.
Just like
together.
his characters, just like his different characters, Newhart, Golden Girl. And that's what's so great about us is we'll bring up, hey, Jeopardy, Alex Trebek wannabe from Golden Girls.
Yes. And Cheers, of course, Andy, where he played a homicidal maniac. And you got to listen to that. If you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen to it because it's incredible. But I'll give you one little teaser from it. He talked about the fact that he had flown from LA back to Canada, and it was Christmas time. And he told his agent, Christmas is very important to me. I don't want you to call me for anything. Leave me alone. It's Christmas. I'm with family. So he was at his girlfriend or his wife's parents' place, and the phone rang, and his father-in-law or his girlfriend's father grabbed the phone and said, Derek, it's for you. It's your agent from Los Angeles. And Derek's like, huh. And he picked up the phone and he said, what are you? And his agent said, look, I know, but just listen to what I have to say. Cheers, homicidal maniac.
Yeah.
And Derek said, book me a flight right now, or words to that effect.
Exactly.
So, and I think he was in at least 2, but I think it was actually 3 episodes.
No, remember they called him back a year after because you asked him, how do you get back into that role? And he goes, well, we don't want to ruin it. You know, you gotta check out the episode.
He was in 2 or 3. He was such an amazing character. I almost think NBC could have written the Andy show. They could have created
a spinoff.
They could have created a spinoff entirely from it, like they did with Fraser. But anyway, we've been prattling on for I don't know how long. How long? What does the time say? How long?
Probably about 30 minutes or so, but
35 minutes. So stay on the Mark 2.0 train.
Subscribe, follow us on all platforms. We got a lot of great guests coming up. And one thing that, we do is we're reaching out to these people. That's how we get these people on. We ask. And we're gladly, if somebody comments, if you want us to reach out to somebody that you think would be a great guest, feel sure to comment. And that's what we do also. We've had a great mix of guests because it's not only people we think of, it's, hey, Taco, would you recommend someone? Sure. James Arena, you name it. Hey, Jack, do you know of anyone? Bill Barkley. And the list goes on and on. Hey, Richard, do you know of anyone? Sure. My brother, Viv. Yeah. And it's been such a great journey. It's not just that. That was just an idea I came up with. We're reaching out to people left and right that come to our mind because our mind is, as producers of this podcast, our mind is spinning with ideas and with guests. And that's how we've gotten an enormous line of just iconic guests.
And we're
that's all I
not
can
shy.
say.
We're not shy. If we can find an email address or contact information, we'll reach out. Mark came up with the idea and he hit me with it. He said, what would you think of this? And he said, why don't we ask our guests at the end of each show? Either we do it after the show.
And sometimes it's not even the representative, it's the actual artists themselves. Like for example, when we reached out to Tim Reed.
Yes.
Because Gordon and I are both big, we're big TV guys, but WKRP in Cincinnati, and his agent was willing, his representative was willing, but understandably at that age, Tim just wasn't interested.
Yeah.
We love the guy. It's all good. Yeah, exactly.
But these are the names that Mark and I spitball back and forth. We throw out names of actors, singers, athletes, prominent individuals.
NBA players, you name
What-
it, whatever it
and
may
we're
be.
reaching out to these people, but there are some that we're not, we can't think of everything. So if you think, hey, this would be an amazing person to have on, throw up a comment. Send
And
us-
what came to my mind, Gordon, is what I'm going to start doing is, because you need content on these social media platforms, and we're doing 1-2 podcasts a week, which is great. But I'm also going to be on Instagram before, and I think I'm going to explain, who do we have coming up? Right? If you want to join me, feel free, because I know on Instagram you can do a live together with people, on there.
Okay.
And I'm going to start, before, like we're doing now. Who do we have coming up this week? Oh, we got this person, we got that person.
We have Jim Morris this week. We have, what's the name of your
Jennifer-Guyor-Jowett.
I'm
The
just gonna
Shadows
say-
is the book.
I'm just going to say Jennifer.
You can just call her teacher. No, I'm kidding.
I was in church today, and there are 2 Syrian refugees who have been sponsored by our congregation.
Yeah.
And the one girl, her name in Arabic, if you say it wrong, it's a profanity. And
Wow.
it's
Okay.
very hard to pronounce because it has a huh and a huh sound.
Yeah.
So, and if you get it wrong, you're swearing.
Wow. Okay.
So everyone just calls her G.
Okay.
And now I forgot why I started to tell you that story. Oh, it's because that's why I'm not saying the author, your grade 8 teacher's last name.
Okay.
Because if I can't pronounce it, I'll just stick to the part I can pronounce, Jennifer.
Sure. Sounds
Jennifer.
good.
And there's another guest we have coming up later in August. We'll be talking to a gentleman by the name of Pastor Steve Coy, who is with Momentum Campus Ministries that in Canada has congregations, places for Christian students to stay connected to a church community while they're going to school.
And that's the thing about this podcast. We bring on all different walks of life. You can't find a more diverse, lineup.
Eclectic.
Really, it really is. And another person we have coming up in August is Maya Wynn. She's
Yes.
an amazing artist from Gordon's old neck of the woods, Portland. And she's also, she does her solo work, of course, but she's also in this band called Envy of None with, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. The band Rush, Alex Lifeson.
Rush?
I believe that they played at your prom, right? Tom Sawyer was playing at your prom. Anyways, on that note, we'll leave it at that. We are going to leave all the links of all of our guests, because buy their merchandise, check out their CDs. I just bought a Chesney Hawks t-shirt, actually. It should arrive in 3 to 4 months because it's coming from the UK, and a Hue and Cry t-shirt too. So we really appreciate all of our guests coming on. We got a great guest coming on in the future, and Chesney Gordon apologizes for being on tour. We will have you on again sometime when your new album drops. You're such an iconic guest. All of our guests are. We thank you. Happy Father's Day again. And one else thing that I wanted to chime in on is my dad passed in 2017. He would absolutely love this podcast, what we're doing.
And
Great.
My dad passed in 2013. Miss your dad.
Yeah.
Happy Father's
Happy
Day.
Father's
everyone.
Day, everyone. Stay tuned. The Mark 2.0 has just begun. We've only just begun, as Karen Carpenter would say.
Very
All
good.
right. Thanks. Appreciate it.